All right, everyone. This is C4. It is June 5th. Your co-chairs are Mayor Hodson and Commissioner Savas. Mayor Hodson, the meeting is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everyone. Happy June to everyone. Enjoying the great weather that we are having. Ms. Lorenzini, if you will so kindly throw up a flag on our screen so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be wonderful. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Almost forgot the words there. I only do it several times a month. All right. Jamie, what is our number for a quorum? 14?
It is 11 and we are there.
All right, good. Then we will be able to actually conduct business. Fabulous. Wonderful. Well, as I stated before, or maybe Jamie did, I'm Mayor Hodson. I am the mayor of Canby. I'm also on the C4 exec, your co-chair, Region 1 Act. Yeah, all sorts of other fun stuff. So I'm glad to be here, see everyone's smiley, shining faces. And I'll kick it over to my co-chair, Mr. Savas.
Hello, everyone. Paul Savas, co-chair. A couple other titles, but I'll just forego that tonight.
Right. Mayor Kaiser.
Scott Kaiser, Mayor of Molalla. You ever got a question, give me a holler.
All right. Mr. Mulch.
Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone, a member of the Executive Committee.
Ms. French.
Hi, Sherry French, Clackamas River Water, representing the water districts in Clackamas County.
Wonderful. Mr. Gornick.
Paul Gornick from Oak Lodge Water Services, representing sanitary districts.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Callahan.
Joshua Callahan, Council Presidents of Happy Valley.
Wonderful. Mr. Cernak.
Kenny Cernak, representing CPOs.
Wonderful. Ms. Pratt.
Oh, God. Valerie Pratt, Twelton City Council President.
Wonderful. Mr. Sheldon.
Hey, good evening. Richard Sheldon, Sandy City Council member.
Wonderful. Mr. Marl.
Good evening, Adam Marl, Oregon City Commissioner.
Okay. Mr. Brashear.
Good evening, everyone. Dwight Brashear. I am the Transit Director for the City of Wilsonville.
Mr. O'Neill.
Good evening, Chair. Sean O'Neill, Mayor of Wilsonville.
Excellent. Joe Buck.
Good evening, Joe Buck. I'm the mayor of Lake Oswego, serve on MPAC, and I'm your Clackamas City's rep on JPAC.
Wonderful. Mr. Owen.
Hello, good evening. Just staff support for your first item here with Clackamas County.
Wonderful. Mr. Anderson.
Sorry.
If we caught that, Mr. Anderson, your microphone's very muted.
Sorry. Finishing up my drive home. Will Anderson with the City of Milwaukee, Council President.
Great. Thanks. Well, appreciate it. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Trent Wilson, Government Affairs for Clackamas County and backup to the most important Jamie Lorenzini.
And speaking of the illustrious and infamous Miss Lorenzini.
Jamie Lorenzini, your humble staff support.
Ooh, full staff support. Excellent. All right. Well, again, welcome everybody. As always, a fun and filled agenda. So let's rapid fire the things that we can, shall we? Housekeeping tonight. We've got the minutes for April 3rd and the minutes of May 8th. Can I get a motion to approve?
I move to.
French, is there a second? Great. Mr. O'Neill, you second? Wonderful.
Yes.
Is there any conversation, comments, omissions? changes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. And anyone opposed? All right, looks like they pass. Excellent. Moving on to our next item this evening, the RFFA Coordinating Committee priorities. And Mr. Owen, Ms. Lorenzini from Clackamas County, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to make a few remarks and then I'll turn it over to Jeff for any additional remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions. I am going to share my screen and talk at the same time. Okay. So by way of background, Jeff and I are here to request C4 would approve a letter to Metro containing feedback and project priorities for an upcoming grant opportunity. Every 3 years, Metro undertakes a process called the Regional Flexible Fund Allocation. In this process, Metro makes competitive grant awards to urban area communities to support local transportation projects. This cycle, Metro received 24 applications across the region, 6 of which came from jurisdictions within Clackamas County. To inform project selection, Metro invites Clackamas County Coordinating Committees and the City of Portland to submit feedback on local priorities. Included on page 7, which is up on your screen of tonight's packet, is a draft letter for C4's consideration. Based on what we've heard at the C4 Metro Subcommittee and decision makers at Metro, it is our staff recommendation that C4 support, by order of priority, the investments in the Gladstone Historic Trolley Trail Bridge, the Milwaukee Railroad Avenue multi-use path, and the Oregon City 99 East improvements from 10th Street to Tumwata Village. Additionally, we have drafted some qualitative feedback to Metro for process improvement. In particular, honoring the work that Metro has done this cycle to reduce participation barriers for smaller communities. How they did that this cycle was through technical assistance during the application period. In this second paragraph, we ask Metro to start merging some conversations we've been having about different funding choices under consideration. In this paragraph, you'll see reference to step 1 and step 2, respectively. Those are the programmatic funding opportunities in Metro, as well as corridor level bond that Metro is discussing. And step 2 are the competitive grant proposals we're discussing tonight. And then finally, in this paragraph 3, we ask Metro to keep seeking funding opportunities for projects that do not advance this cycle. We recognize that the need outstrips the funding available, but that doesn't make these unfunded investments any less important to the communities that they serve. This letter and the accompanying technical memo that discusses how we got to a staff recommendation were provided in advance to the C4 Metro Subcommittee without opposition. If C4 approves this letter tonight, then we'll finalize the document for delivery to Metro staff before an important staff level policy meeting tomorrow. With that, I'll turn it to Jeff for any additional comments and then open it up to any questions.
Sure. Thank you, Jamie. So Jeff Owen, Principal Transportation Planner with Clackamas County, and one of your links to the technical committee that meets tomorrow morning, TPAC, that supports JPACT within the Metro region. In addition, tomorrow morning, we will also have from the cities of Clackamas County, Laura Turway from the city of Happy Valley. So the two of us will be ready to help convey verbally as well, and kind of through discussion in that group, your direction tonight. And then the only other piece I would mention is this is hard. There's always in each cycle of this particular fund, there's a lot of really good projects that are submitted. There unfortunately is just not enough money. It's around the ratio of $140 million worth of ask for roughly 40-ish million of available funding. One late breaking update just a few days ago, this targeted amount for this exact pot of money was increased a little bit, so that's good news. But it's still not enough to do all the wonderful projects within our county and around the region. So the target in total is about 49 million now for step 2 around the region. So we have met as a CTAC group a few times to discuss these issues and try to carry forward direction discussed to date. And we are happy to hear your discussion and look for your wisdom and direction tonight. So with that, I'll pause and just open it up for any discussion on this requested action.
Any different questions for staff? Yes, Councilor Pratt.
I just have one little particular thing. And I know this is what we want to do, but on the first paragraph of the second page, it says, by merging these discussions, we can enhance geographic representation, which is what I know is our goal. But it's, if I'm remembering correctly, Counselor Lewis has told us that they can't use that as a criteria for picking these projects. So I'm just wondering if that makes us look like we don't understand this process.
Thank you. The rules currently say that we can't sub-allocate funds by region. So Metro can't set a percentage, say based on our population. But one of the program objectives of the regional flexible fund allocation is to invest throughout the region. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I just wanted to, I didn't want it to seem that we're not understanding the process.
Yeah, just maybe friendly comment. I appreciate that as well, and we could kind of friendly trade out 1 or 2 words there. It might just be enhance coordinating committee priorities. But I think agree with what Jamie's mentioning there. We think this language is okay, but it definitely sensitive to your point that you're making there that the program direction definitely does indicate there's not a predetermined amount that each portion of the region would necessarily get. So we think the language is okay, but happy to make the adjustments if the group wants that.
Other questions? Okay, any discussion? What's the hopes, dreams, and fears of this group on that list? Does everybody agree with the list? Yes, Mr. Callahan.
Thanks, Mayor Hodson. I just, I'd like to say that I think us at Happy Valley, we'd like to support this list. We have, I think, one of the items that would be pretty important for the city of Happy Valley, but, working together as a group, I think has really gotten us a lot further from my understanding of the history of this money, these REFA dollars. So, we're happy to stand in line and wait for the next opportunity with our project. So I think, coming together and supporting these projects that have all been on the docket for a while, all meet the criteria, it's the best opportunity to get those dollars. So I'd like to just say that we would support this from the perspective of Happy Valley.
Great, thank you, sir. Appreciate the teamwork on that. Thank you. Mayor Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I appreciate the feedback here. Commissioner Savas and I will carry this to JPAC, where we still have to, advocate for these projects, right, amongst the larger, but amongst, the projects coming out of Multnomah and Washington counties as well. But I think it's really smart of us to advance a real reasonable set of projects. I mean, there are other projects in the region that would literally eat up the entire bucket of step 2 funding. And I had made a comment at the last JPAC meeting that, I mean, ideally the coordinating committees like ours and then the from Multnomah and Washington counties will come with reasonable requests that are respectful of the population in the region. And I think that we're doing that right here, so we can be very comfortable standing strong on working to ensure that these 3 projects get funded. Thank you.
Mr. Savis and Mayor Buck, I mean, when we look at what we're submitting as compared to, I'm sure you've had some visibility to the other counties and what they're submitting. No. Where do you haven't seen that list yet, Joe? Okay. So I guess, do we have a feel, like, are they looking to try to complete as many projects as possible? Or are they looking to, move as many forward as they can, but maybe not complete?
I'll just jump in, and I don't know if any of our staff want to raise their hands and add to what I do know, but I have seen a couple of the rankings over time as this has progressed, which showed all of the projects. So I will say that it's competitive. So just because we submit this list does not necessarily secure these 3 projects. It's
Right.
very competitive.
Yeah, if I could offer, just brief support. I do think what we're hearing at this moment, and the situation's a little fluid, that'll still unfurl a little more into June, July. But I believe our colleagues on the west side, the Washington County Coordinating Committee, have chosen this cycle to not necessarily rank any priorities, but just kind of stand behind the project evaluations and public comment and other pieces that are there. And then I believe for East Multnomah County, they have chosen a few that do perform fairly well as well. So I think the magic ahead is trying to start at the top. This is 1, 2, 3 that kind of does inform that we start at the top and really work for the first one, the second one, the third one. So we will definitely at the staff level attempt to do that in coordination with other colleagues at the same time as the JPAC conversations are happening as well. So I believe I would say we have a little bit of a lens into that, but that could definitely change tomorrow and the next day as well.
Any other comments or discussion on this? If not, I think, we need, it's listed as an action item that we need to take a vote on to move forward. So if there is no more discussion or hashing this out, I'll gladly take a motion, please.
So moved, Mayor Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Is there a second?
I'll second. Paul Savis.
Thank you, Commissioner Savis. So it's been moved by Councilor Callahan and seconded by Co-Chair Commissioner Savis to approve the RFFA Coordinating Committee priorities as submitted. Any further discussion? All those in favor, show of hands on the screen. All right, anyone opposed? I think that passes for the evening. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Owen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jamie, anything else regarding this item? Or we're
No,
good to
sir.
move on.
We will put your signatures on the letter and get it off to Metro.
Great. All right, next on the agenda is the final summer retreat agenda. Miss Lorenzini.
Yeah, thank you. The C4 retreat is coming up fast. We meet on July 25th to 26th. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to RSVP in the near future. The link is included in tonight's packet, and registration can be completed separate from paying the registration fee. Knowing whether or not you'd like to stay overnight in advance will help us secure the right number of rooms for the retreat. But tonight, I'm here to ask C4 to discuss and approve a refined retreat agenda. Last month, C4 received a high-level agenda framework. After that meeting, the executive committee provided additional feedback, and we leaned in more closely to better understand the topics that you're interested in discussing. I'm going to share my screen again briefly. But within this revised, refined agenda, day one is still specific to housing, and we propose to open it up with a little bit more place setting, talking about findings from the 2025 Clackamas County Point in Time report and leaning in to the latest and greatest around supportive housing services. Later in the afternoon, we'd love to have another city staff experts panel to talk about middle housing successes and challenges, recognizing that C4 gave very strong and positive feedback last November when we brought our last technical panel. And then finally, rounding out the day with a legislative debrief of housing policy we saw come through the state this cycle. Then leaning into day 2, this will continue to be our transportation day, debriefing the findings we heard from the C4 Transit Providers Subcommittee, so rounding out a request that came from C4 earlier this year. Doing some more interactive work about what is our role in advancing the conversation around transit, maybe some policy changes that are needed, and really digging into how do we define success in a year. And then closing out the retreat with a larger debrief around the transportation package, which will be increasingly more important as we anticipate more information to come out very late in the session. So my question to this group is, are these the conversations you want to have, and is this the retreat you'd like to have? If not, we can continue to refine. If we're going in the right direction, then I would welcome a motion to approve this agenda tonight. Are there any questions?
I'm just going to say, Jamie, thank you for you and the staff putting together. It's hard. It's tough. You know, we look at the, you know, what's the legislative piece going to be, and you know, again, looks like it's touching a little bit on everything for this group. So, so is this an agenda that works for everybody, that is going to make you to want to race up to Mount Hood and spend a 24-hour period with your closest Clackamas County friends to hash out the future of C4 and set a course for success in the coming year? I mean, I can feel the excitement bristling from all of you.
This is Buck. I move that we approve the proposed retreat agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Buck. And thank you, Valerie, for seconding that. All right, hands and screen, all those in favor? And anyone opposed? All right, looks like that we have the set agenda for the retreat. Excellent, thank you all. Next on the agenda is the fire season briefing. We've got Brentwood Reed, Brent Olson, and Daniel Nybor helping guide us through this tonight. Welcome, all of you. This is C4. Welcome.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to present to this audience tonight. My name is Brentwood Reed. I'm the Wildfire Partnership Coordinator with Clackamas Fire, and I lead the Clackamas Wildfire Collaborative and the Mount Hood Corridor Wildfire Partnership. Let me share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see that? So yes. I will be doing a quick presentation on some of the mitigation efforts happening in Clackamas County, specifically in one partnership area, and then our vision for how the Wildfire Collaborative would like to spread that throughout the county to different areas. Then Chief Olson will be discussing the Clackamas Fire's response capacity, and Daniel Nybauer with disaster management will talk about the evacuation planning. And so the Mount Hood Corridor Wildfire Partnership, and essentially from Sandy to Wapanesha, these are the partners here. This formed in 2022 as a response to the 2020 wildfires. A lot of really good activity is taking place in this particular partnership. It's a local, state, federal organizations or agencies, fire districts, local HOAs, CPOs. We've got school district, watershed, or I guess industrial or industry partners, PGE, Portland Water Bureau, and other smaller water districts, and then the ski resorts. So we are broken into work groups: education outreach, a fuels management work group, an emergency communications work group, and then an HOA and CPO work group. And it's the HOA and CPO work groups that are really driving this partnership forward, because the agencies are there to support what the homeowners and the residents in the area, what their needs are. And so they're proposing projects and they're expressing their needs to us, and then we support as best we can. Some of the initiatives we work on, we do homeowner mitigation workshops. We're bringing subject matter experts to train folks in home ignition zone, how to deal with insurance, and a number of other issues. We put on a Fire in the Mountain Film Festival at Timberline Lodge 2 years ago, where we watched 3 recent wildfire films, and they had a couple panels of subject matter experts do a question and answer with the audience. We host a mountain science night. It's sort of a pub series where we take scientists with the latest research on mitigation and wildfire science issues related to the area can speak to the audience in a more relaxed setting and do a question and answer. We just finished up our first series, our spring series, and we'll be picking that back up in the fall at the Rendezvous in Welch's. One of our other work groups is a community emergency communications work group. One of the impetuses for starting this partnership was the public safety power shutoffs in 2020. What they discovered was, although there was a mixed blessing, the fires it probably prevented fires. What it did do was, after 7 days of no power, they lost cell coverage, because cell towers have 3 days of backup power. Well, the work group worked together to get legislation that became House Bill 3743 that would require the cell tower providers to provide 14 days backup power like they do in California. Unfortunately, this bill died in committee, but it is a step forward. In the meantime, to build in resilience, the local HOA has developed the Hoodland Emergency Communications Network, which is a group that are training and using GMRS radio network. They put on classes, they've set up repeaters, and at the moment they've got a radio network from, I think, Brightwood up to Laurel Hill and up in the Welch's area. So once a week they'll get on the radio and make sure this is working. They also are in communications with the ham radio operators. So if there is a disaster, they can be in contact with Portland or further down the mountain through ham radio, and then they will spread the information through these handheld GMRS radio networks. We also do fuels management, and we just finished up this project called the Timberline Rib Community Wildfire Risk Reduction Project, where Ant Farm Youth Services and Clackamas Crew 30 went in and did home assessments and treatments for about 100 properties in the Timberline Rib community. This map here, you can see each of these are properties that have either are waiting for an assessment. The red ones are waiting for assessment. The blue ones have been assessed and have had treatments, and then the green ones have been assessed and have yet to have treatments. Oregon State Fire Marshal provided a grant to do this work, as well as a grant that Ant Farm had. To help folks who would like to get rid of the hazard in their yard, but don't want to have a burn pile, we do free woody debris collection events throughout the spring and the fall. We have one location in Beaver Creek here at the top, and then another one up in Welch's. And these are very popular, and we bring in a air curtain incinerator afterward to burn the debris. The air current incinerator is very interesting, and it reduces the emissions by about 90%. So it has a blower that blows air in there. It burns very hot. In the end, it leaves what's called biochar that can be used as a soil enhancer. So that's the partnership, the Wildfire Collaborative. We've broken that up into 3 different work groups: a response work group, which essentially is the Fire Defense Board, a Fire Adaptive Communities work group, and then a Landscape Resiliency work group. We modeled this after the National Cohesive Strategy, and then we focused on various areas from landscape resilience, whether through landscape treatment through fuels reduction or restoring wetlands, for instance. And then the fire adaptive communities, this is home assessment, these are education outreach. And then we have this CWPP steering committee, which is the role is to continue to move forward the community wildfire protection plan goals. Instead of that being a plan that we create and set on the shelf for 10 years and then redo it, we meet quarterly. I take a look at the goals that each of these work groups have identified from the CWPP, and then we vote on what the priorities are, and then we find funding for those projects. Our vision is to have wildfire partnerships at the local level throughout the county that can be supported by the Wildfire Collaborative. So right now we have the Mount Hood Corridor Wildfire Partnership. From, again, Sandy to Wapanesha, we're looking at standing up a partnership and helping form a partnership from Boring to Happy Valley, the Sunnyside Corridor Wildfire Partnership, and the Highway 211 partnership from Estacada to include Malala and Colton, and then possibly looking at in the future, though not much planning has gone into, a Canby or Beaver Creek Wildfire Partnership.
Okay, thanks, Brentwood. I'll take it from here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brent Olson. I'm the Division Chief of Wildland Fire Operations for Clackamas Fire. Just give you a real quick overview. I've been asked to give you a little capacity of what Clackamas Fire looks like, not only last year, but also this year moving forward. So on your screen now, you'll see kind of some of our newest acquisitions since 2020. On the left there, we just got 2 new Type 6 wildland-centric engines. And then on the right-hand side there are our larger Type 3 engines, and that's 2 of the 4 that we have moving forward. So a lot of gains on the apparatus front since 2020. Everyone, of course, on this meeting remembers how impactful that was across the county. To put it in perspective, at that time, Clackamas Fire had 9 apparatus that were wildland-centric, and today we're happy to say we have 19. So quite an increase there. Brentwood, if you'll hit the next slide, please. Okay, last year for Clackamas Fire on the screen, there's kind of a heat map of where our different responses for wildland were across our service area. You'll notice that they stretch across. This is not just a rural problem. This problem also occurs in our more densely populated areas, with actually the vast quantity happening in and around kind of what we term the core up on 82nd and along the 205 corridor. So this does span across our fire district, which is, of course, a large section of the county moving forward. So 112 in all for last year. The next one, Brentwood, please. Okay, and then of course we supported conflagrations, and why I want to throw this and the next couple slides in for this audience is that Clackamas Fire is a large supporter of what we term the Oregon State Mutual Aid System. It's where fire agencies across the state will go and help other agencies in their time of need. We were a recipient, we as in the global county, were a recipient of this mutual aid system in 2020, and we feel it's very important to give back to that in our neighbors in their time of need. It's a little bit twofold. As we support our neighbors in their time of need, our firefighters are also gaining the experience that if and when that experience needs to be drawn upon in Clackamas County, we will be even more ready than we currently are. So as you can see on the right-hand side of the picture there, conflagrations and wildfire response across the state is increasing almost exponentially. And that's just a quick look back to 2021. If it goes even farther, the graph gets a little bit steeper. But of course, last year for the entire state of Oregon, quite an impactful with about 1.9 million acres burned. And conflagrations put out 17 conflagrations last year, which is the most the state has ever put out. Next, please. Actually, even with all those impacts to the states, we have a pretty good track record as the Oregon Fire Service. I think that's something everyone on this meeting can be proud of. Over 17,000 homes and structures were threatened, but I shouldn't say only, but 42 lost. I think that's a pretty good record. We're going to try to improve on that always, of course. It costs about $34.5 million for the Oregon Fire Service to respond to conflagrations across the state last year. Unfortunately, weather patterns are starting to look very similar this year as they were last year. So it remains to be seen what that looks like moving forward. So this is just Clackamas Fire's responses to conflagrations. You can see we responded to almost every one of them. I think 16 out of 17 conflagrations. We had, if you'll go to the next one, Brentwood. So just kind of the red at the bottom there kind of sums it all up. We had 108 days deployed of Clackamas firefighters from across the county to support our neighbors in the greater parts of Oregon. 85 firefighters, 80 apparatus responses, and then IMTs, which is the incident management teams. Those are the teams that give overall direction to the fire. So we had 49 people from Clackamas Fire. Those are all Clackamas Fire numbers there that supported the state. So far and away, the largest supporter in the Oregon Mutual Aid system. And then this one's near and dear to my heart. Clackamas Fire hosts the only municipally hosted hand crew that is wildland centric in either Oregon or Washington. And they had a robust season, as you can imagine, last year, fighting fires not just across the state of Oregon, but also in Idaho as well towards the end of the season. In fact, currently the crew is on and they are supporting large fire in Alberta, Canada. So they are across the border on those fires as we speak right now. So they were out for about 80 days or so. And with that, I'll hand it over to Daniel Neibauer. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I just want to hit a kind of quick here. They do a lot of the work on the groundwork and other things, but I want to talk a little bit about Clackamas County Disaster Management and what we do and some of the initiatives we've got going on recently. First, kind of want to highlight our disaster management wildfire page. This is where you'll find information for wildfires, preparing for wildfires. Of course, the level 1, 2, 3, our evacuation map, if it's going to be active, if we've got active evacuations maps on and their shelters, all of that information you can find on this page. There'll also be, if we have an active fire, a red banner across the top of this page, which will link to an additional page specifically about that specific incident or event, where we'll have all updated information and be able to share information. So this is a great source of material in terms of preparing for wildfire season. Can I get the next slide? And whoop, there you go. Thank you. And this is a campaign that we're particularly proud of. It's kind of the next step in our particularly evacuation planning, but in our wildfire planning as well. And it's our Clack Go, G-O, not C-O, prepared campaign. And we're going to be doing that over the course of the next 8 weeks, consisting of 3 steps. And that's going to be signing up for public alerts, getting your evacuation map, and making a kit. And so their evacuation maps, Brentwood, if you go to the next slide, be able to take a look at that. There's one for each city, and then the second one that's around that city kind of pulls out a little bit further, and you'll be able to see that surrounding area. And these are the evacuation routes that we've identified through the course of the last year or so. I mean, they're obviously the big roads, but one of the major things we heard out of the 2020 is people were having difficulties identifying evacuation routes. And while we can't identify a single road because it'll get clogged up, or it could be leading someone into an area where the incident is, this will allow people to recognize the major roads, know the roads that we're going to be working on clearing and opening up, and then be able to allow us to provide additional guidance on what roads to take to be able to get somewhere safely, and we'll put that out. One of the next steps on this project is to be able to get it like our evacuation map so that an individual can put in their address and then it will produce a more customized map. Right now, we kind of have these larger area maps, but we hope to get it, working with our GIS folks, to get us something a little bit more specific. So definitely encourage folks. You'll see on our social media about once or twice a week over the course of the next 8 weeks, popping up some of our Clack Go Prepared campaign, and please pass that along. Encourage your community members to sign up for public alerts and kind of join along in the campaign. And we're working on right now getting some preparedness materials and some Go Kit equipment that we'll use as a little bit of a giveaway near the end of the campaign through a social media campaign on that. So that's my quick portions of it, and that's what I've got.
Great, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here and giving us that breakdown. Definitely not a small undertaking by any stretch of the imagination to be prepared, or at least plan for being prepared. So thank you. Questions from the group? Yes, Mayor Milch.
I'm always happy to see when the fire districts focus on prevention and preparation. That's really essential to doing your job right, and I appreciate these efforts here. You know, when the fires down in Southern California earlier this year in the Palisades area, you know, the focus was a lot of pictures of a lot of property destruction, and that's one element of the reports that you've presented. You know, is counting those buildings lost and so on. But increasingly, as we get more fires, what we're seeing from this fire in Canada, I think, is a lot of air quality damage, you know, from smoke. Are you cooperating with medical healthcare providers on how the public can respond if that's the way we're impacted, more than destruction of property, but really this ongoing smoke and that sort of issue?
Yeah, great question, Mayor. Appreciate that. You know, the fire department is, for good or for bad, focused on that response aspect. I think OHA is a better option and vehicle to really address those medical needs at that kind of more global scale. We do have our resilience officer in contact with OHA to try to help get their message out, but we've definitely been mindful to allow them to craft the message as the subject matter experts, and for us to then help relay that along. So we're trying to really stay in our lane with that one.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I can address a bit of that too. County Public Health works with OHA as well as Oregon Department of Human Services to get a lot of that message out, as well as through the Emergency Operations Center. We work with the state and public health and housing and human services to identify those individuals that may need extra help, to find out what kind of resources we can provide. And sometimes the state or the county has resources we can get to an individual to help get the air clear. And in other cases, if they need to come to a shelter, we can pull resources to make sure there's clean air in the shelter. So we've got a lot of the information on that campaign, as well as resources for individuals who need resources or clean air. And we also begin to reach out to folks as well to kind of check in on them.
Yeah, question. I had to step away for a little bit, so if you already mentioned this, I apologize. But two questions. I caught the first part of the presentation about the cell tower you showed there, and that legislation or effort to increase the days up to 14 days for backup generation. So in that vein, my question is, you know, I think the other thing we learned from the Palisade fires from watching it was that, you know, they really in that suburban area, if you want to call it that, they ran out of water. There was no water. And I don't know all the causes of that. My point is, have we worked hard with all the water utilities and maybe even some of the wells that are out in the rural areas to make sure that we know where they are, that they are, as far as their backup generation, that they're hardened? Have we done any work in that area?
Well, I can address that a little bit. The short answer is yes, especially in our rural areas. In fact, I've got some people we'll use draft sites, meaning the static bodies of water that then we can draft from. And in fact, some of those have been developed in cooperation with the Oregon Department of Forestry. And so this is kind of our time of year to go out and weed eat around those to the best of our abilities and kind of make sure, give them a quick look over, make sure that they're ready to be utilized and pressed into service if need be. As far as the water purveyors go, we work really closely with a lot of our water purveyors, whether that's Sunrise Water or Clackamas River Water. The systems are what they are, and if there is a fire that starts to tax those systems, those are some of the first calls that we put in through our dispatch center to notify them, and they can kind of boost the pressures within those. Fortunately, our systems are really based off the river. So those pumps, as long as we've got kind of power and everything, we usually have a pretty steady supply of water as opposed to a reservoir type system. I can't speak to everything that happened in Palisades. I was down there for all of that, but that's well outside my lane as a firefighter.
Right. And my last question is, with some of the rural residents out there, are you seeing a ramp down in interest in hardening properties and doing all the prevent? Or is it ramping up?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say it's necessarily one or the other. I think it's incumbent upon us to really try to do the outreach and the education and give the why behind it. That's I think a much more sustainable path to try to keep people interested and engaged in their own property's well-being is to really explain that why it's so important for us as responders coming in to give their home property and other valuables the best chance that we can for us to defend those things. So the work that Brentwood is doing out there, the work that Daniel's team at Disaster Management has really been key to engaging those work groups because, as I said, government can't do it alone. We really need everybody. The CPO groups that Brentwood's been engaged with have been absolutely phenomenal. Our plan with the partnerships is to try to utilize those as vehicles to engage those folks that aren't quite engaged, at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming and teeing us up for what you all have been working on, and prayers for safety and bringing everybody back on these tough fires this season. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right. Next on our agenda is the ODOT Capital Investment Plan. And we have Miss Amanda, I butchered, I'm sorry. Is it Pete's?
Great job. That is correct.
All right. Gold star for Brian. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. I have a presentation and slide deck that I think was shared. Is somebody going to share that, or I can share my screen either way?
Amanda, I'll defer to you on your preference. I'm happy to pull it up on our end.
If you don't mind, that would be great. Thank you. So while it's being pulled up, my name is Amanda Peets. I'm the administrator for Policy Data and Analysis Division with the Oregon Department of Transportation. So I oversee our statewide long-range plans, our policies, research data, climate efforts, as well as just basically everything from planning through project selection. So what I'm talking about here today is our capital investment plan. I was asked to come share that with you because it's kind of a new way of selecting projects for the Oregon Department of Transportation. And we're going around and talking to key stakeholders across the state to get input on how the Transportation Commission should prioritize projects with limited funding. So I think we all know the funding woes of transportation. We experience it at the state level, the county level, and the city level very acutely, and so do our Oregonians. And so we want to make sure that with our investments, we focus on the right things and try to prioritize. So I'm here today to just share what this is, and then also if you have any feedback on goals or priorities like safety, state of good repair, equity, climate, some of those kind of things. That's the feedback that the Transportation Commission will consider and make a determination of what they'll use to rank projects and investment ideas. So let's go ahead and go next slide. Thank you, Jamie, for doing this. Appreciate it. So a little bit about what this is. So it'll look 10 years out. And so we haven't done that before. Typically, we'll look out 2 years for a budget and 4 years for the statewide transportation improvement program known as the STIP. So that's our federal dollars. So this longer term look is something we haven't done and shared before. You may be familiar with this with Metro's RTP, with some of the local transportation system plans. They do tend to look out a little further. So over that 10-year period, we're going to have investments that we plan to pursue. That's that teal box shown there. And those are really within money that we think we'll have available. What is it that we want to fund? The majority of those will be projects. We'll show some programmatic funding. So I saw SMART here on the call. We'll show in transit funding as programmatic. So we're not going to show individual transit projects. That's really at the discretion of transit agencies and their decision making. But we do want to overall show how much money is going to public transportation, for example. And then we'll have some reserve that over a 10-year period, conditions will change. We'll have new safety issues arise. For example, we want to be agile to be able to address those, focus on highest number of fatalities and serious injuries and some of those kind of things. So we'll have a quick response reserve that we can be more agile to changing conditions. Like local plans and metropolitan plans, we'll also have more of an aspirational list. That will be pretty small. I think we all know of plans or strategies that have projects that sit there year after year after year. Our intent is to really focus on those things that we think we can pursue in that 10-year period and to be ready for grant opportunities should they arise. So we want to have a little bit more project ideas and investments than we have actual funding for over that period. Even if we're fortunate, or let me say when we're fortunate to get a transportation funding package passed in the state of Oregon, that will be a huge boost. However, I think we'll still fall short of what our total transportation needs are. So we want to show on a continual basis what those unmet needs are to be very transparent of what we're not getting to as well. Next slide. So I mentioned this is a 10-year look at investments that will really bridge our long-range transportation plans, which look out 20 years into the future with our budgets that are that shorter term, and really make sure we're accountable to goals we have in the Oregon Transportation Plan, like safety, state of good repair, all those kind of things, and make sure those are actually carrying through into our investments. Next slide. And then be able to show a strategy longer term. So over a 10-year period, I can actually see what are we trying to do to make our system more resilient for seismic. So if an earthquake happens, where are the corridors that we're really armoring? What does that look like? Or for larger projects, what do those phasing look like over time? It also helps our Transportation Commission see if they're borrowing money to pay for big projects today, they're going to have to pay that back over time. That's going to mean fewer projects in the future. This gives us a true sense of what actual project you'd have to cancel to make that work. So you're having more of a discrete trade-off decision. Next slide. Today, investment ideas come from a lot of different places. It's not really a clear and just disciplined process. So we're going to change that. We're going to have projects come from 1 to 3 places, from an adopted plan. So think of a city or county TSP, or an ODOT corridor plan, like an interchange area management plan, from an asset management system. So that's the assets piece there. So think of the way that we look at our bridge condition and pavement condition, and then we decide where are some of the highest needs and focus on that. So it's really based on the data side. And then our area commissions on transportation, and I've shared this with the Region 1 Act and many others as well. They have in their work plans developing a prioritization list of investment options. So making sure we're feeding into that process and really using those as potential opportunities for investment ideas. Each investment idea will then be screened through goals and metrics. So as I mentioned, we're creating that better accountability from our plans through to our budget. So if we have a goal for safety, are we actually accomplishing safety with these investments? And how are we doing that? To what degree? So only those investments that are advancing those key goals will move forward. And the priorities that I'm going around talking to folks about and asking for input on, those will be what really influences what we ultimately select. It looks like the slide deck went away for a moment.
I apologize for that.
No worries. And then we'll use those goals to help elevate the right projects, but we need to look at them at the end of the day. We need to make sure that we have a good balance of urban and rural investments. We have a very diverse state. You have it even here in the C4 committee, some diverse jurisdictions here that are represented. So are we making sure that we're meeting those multiple needs? Are we balancing the right types of investment? Or we have biking and walking investments and roadway investments, kind of that multimodal element, and then considering a lot of other things as we do that. So that's another stage where we'll kind of check in with our local community partners and see if there's opportunity to maybe leverage funds, partner together to advance some projects. Next slide, please. And then we'll sequence the projects over that 10-year period based on readiness, urgency, how well we understand the projects, especially risks of the projects. I think anyone that's delivered transportation or any project probably knows there's a lot of risk, whether that's environmental issues, other cost issues. So making sure that we have a good understanding of that project so that we can get better cost estimates. That's one thing the legislature has really emphasized for the Department of Transportation, an area of improvement. So this will help get us there because we'll really have that ability to manage our investment portfolio so that when projects are ready, then they're programmed for funding. It doesn't take 10 years to develop a project. There'll be projects that are pretty straightforward. We'll go ahead and program those right away. There's others that will more conceptual. We'll need to develop more over time, spend a little bit more time getting those ready and putting those into the pipeline. And then depending if urgency changes, if our understanding changes, we'll move things up or down on this list to sequence it. So that'll really help us get at better cost estimates that are more accurate. Next slide. As we do that, we're also going to shorten the time frame of the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, or the STIP. So if you've seen the legislature, the Joint Committee on Transportation, and Senator Starr hired a consultant group that came in and evaluated the agency, called a managerial review. One of the things that they suggested as well is shortening the time frame of the STIP so that by the time you estimate how much a project is to when you actually construct it, there's not a huge time lag. Today there is. So we have projects right now programmed, or we have them estimated and finances reserved for those all the way through 2027. You can imagine between now and 2027, a lot of things change. So it's really shortening that time frame, updating that annually. And then we're going to do more phasing to also make sure that we're doing design and then construction, having that good sense of that project, making sure there's that community support and all those key elements for those. Next slide. So we're setting the commission's prioritizing goals at their January meeting. I think I was asked to come here just to share a little bit about this new process, to also elevate that opportunity to work with your area commission on transportation, as well as your region partners, to elevate the needs and the investment opportunities for your area, and to help influence the priorities the commission sets itself. So just an example of another state doing this kind of work. There's some criteria on the right there from Nevada and how they help prioritize projects. Next slide. So these are the questions we're going out and asking folks as we go and set those investment priorities with the commission in their July meeting, which is at the end of the month. Again, if you had to select a few of these, what would be those ones that you think really should drive our investment decisions? In other words, all these things are important. What are the ones that should really float the right investments to the top? Now, that's obviously subjective, but what we're trying to get at the end of the day is that last bullet there. What do you think best defines or makes up a best value or high return on investment project? So what are those things a commission should really narrow in on? So with that, that's my last slide. Happy to take any questions about what this new thing is. I'm super excited about it. I think it's a great change for us. Will lead to some better changes and better partnerships, hopefully with our local jurisdiction partners, because I think that's key as well, and better transparency. So I see there's a couple hands up. Maybe Mr. Chair, if you want to call on folks, or I can, either way.
Sure. Mayor Kaiser, you're first, sir.
Thank you. Hey, Amanda, I wanted to thank you for coming out here tonight. I actually kind of have a two-part question here. The first part is ODOT. One of the things our city kind of brought in was our paving company. We're doing a contract with a paving company for, I think it's 5 years. And basically what we asked them to do was come in, give us a set list of pricing. Like if we were resurfacing a road, if we had to bring them in to patch some work we did to put new pipe in, and all these prices are set for the next 5 years. No matter what we ask them to do, we have a list of everything it costs, and it's literally a phone call, it gets done. It also keeps from the city having to put it out for bid every single project. And I was just wondering if ODOT has considered something like that, say in the regional zone, like each zoned area, having one company that gives the best price on all these contracted paving to kind of save ODOT some money.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kaiser. Great question. I personally am not super deep in knowledge on what our contracting prices are or contracting arrangements are in terms of what I would call more price agreements like that. But it does create the stability and the certainty that is really helpful. I think where we can, we try to do that on specific services, whether that's purchasing snow blowers or things like that. But for units of kind of pavement and materials that you're talking about, I'll certainly look into that and see what our practices are, but do appreciate that recommendation.
Okay, and the last question was, and you probably don't know this, many people here know my frustration. I know your list that you put up, wanting to make better partners with the community. I can tell you one of the things that would make you a better partner, ODOT, a better partner with the Molalla community, is getting our Highway 211 paved. And literally, we've waited 25 years for a repave through our city. It's not safe for motorcycles or bicyclists to ride on, and we've constantly been put on the back burner for all this time. I mean, Highway 213 up through Malino up the hill just got a nice fresh repave, and it's probably one of the nicest highways in our area, and we're sitting back going, still again, no paving. So maybe reaching out and little one-on-one with each community to find out exactly what's been ignored, especially about 25 years, it would be nice, because it would get you guys a lot more support, especially if it comes to a vote to get you guys more money.
Yeah, I think great point. And I just think to articulate some of the funding issues, with the money that we're projected to have from the federal government without any state intervention, we really have money to just pave interstates in 2027 and beyond. And so it gets even more dire and even more challenging for communities like yours that have been waiting a long time, and really seeing those drastic conditions that are out there. So certainly recognize that dire need. And I think, appreciate the recommendation on talking to communities. I think the other piece of that is the criteria that we use to select projects, making sure we're thinking about the right things as we're identifying and prioritizing those, to make sure that we're getting the communities in need. So appreciate that feedback. And if you all have recommendations too on how to make sure that we're thinking about and elevating those projects that are maybe getting overlooked today, certainly appreciate that too.
Thank you.
Chair Sabas.
Hello, Amanda. Thanks for being here. I think this is the fourth or fifth time I've seen this presentation, so I got it down pretty good. But I still have questions, believe it or not. That on that last slide, you have that table, and I think in the lower right corner was the words geographic balance. So with that in mind, is the STIP in this, as proposed in this 10-year cycle, is it going to be a statewide list, or is it going to be broken down by regions, by area commissions on transportation, by the acts?
Yeah, so it would be a statewide look, because I think that's what we have to look at as well as we think about geographic balance, is across the state of Oregon, as well as specifically with urban and rural breakdowns. So it is comprehensive of everything in terms of organizing to show the projects. We'd probably organize those by ODOT region. We could look at them by Area Commission on Transportation, but I think probably ODOT region is the way that we'd break those down and show those. And then I think we're still working on how we report out on some of the project lists in terms of metrics like percentage urban, percentage rural, percentage to different area commissions, and some of those other outcomes that I think really illustrate if we're starting to hit that right balance or not.
The reason I asked, this kind of builds on Mayor Kaiser's point about Molalla. If you were to break down the state list and look at it by region, for example, I think you would, and you just use the lens of geographic balance, you would, it would be very clear that Highway 211 through Malala is not getting is long overdue. Let's just put it that way. I know that Mayor Hodson's had the benefit of having 99E redone. I know that Sandy, the rural cities, for example, the rural cities all have, Estacada, all have a pretty good main road or highway, state highway going through their town, with the exception of Malala. So I think be mindful, maybe there could be a line added or some parentheses or an asterisk saying that maybe there ought to be some sub area or sub act geographic balance as well, because there's a lot of winners and there's a lot of losers.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner. And I think also the ability to look at this through time. So oftentimes we're looking at little snapshots at a time. In a 10-year period, I think it may become more pronounced where we're not having investments that may make those issues more acute. So something we'll look into. Thank you, Commissioner.
Mayor O'Neill.
Thank you, Amanda, for your presentation. For the city of Wilsonville, it continues to be an interest to have the I-5 bridge or Boone Bridge replaced. And we've been trying to get this up the food chain as a priority. And it seems to me that the thought process should be not only about geographical location, but geographical impact, because that bridge services a wide area of our state, as well as transportation for our trucks and things like that. And it divides our community here in Wilsonville. So how do we see something like that getting up the food chain to priority?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that is partially in the criteria that are set. So some of the things that we often look at are traffic volumes. So what's the use of certain facilities? So we look at average annual daily traffic. We look at roadway classifications like expressway. We look at designations like if it's a freight route, which Boone Bridge ticks a lot of those boxes. But I think those are key as we really think about what criteria we use to help screen through projects. And so I've heard some good comments here today around kind of, what would I say, underserved areas, not equity underserved, but underserved infrastructure maybe, as well as kind of those key things about the impact, which again, I would characterize as some of those things that I just mentioned. So I think it's partially in the criteria there too. Thank you.
So Amanda, a couple of things. So as we look at this presentation and the shift and looking at it on a yearly basis, which I think is good because it's a communication piece. I think it's things happen and sometimes requires a quick course correction, and also projects, depending on how things develop or cost of those projects, all of a sudden cause a delay, and we can catch those sooner. So a couple of questions or any comments. So to Mayor O'Neill's comment about the geographic balance, I think something like the Boone's Bridge, Rose Quarter, Interstate Bridge, those are major bottlenecks that are, yes, part of this region, but have a statewide West Coast regional impact. And so I think some of those projects, though, as we look at it here in Oregon from a geographical impact, definitely outweigh any kind of balance that would go to the other part of the state, or other parts of the state. So I think that was an interesting point that Mayor O'Neill made regarding that. As we look at pricing and stuff down the road, do we factor in now, like how the tariff piece or steel costs, all those kinds of things are going to play into the longer time frame on some of these projects?
Yeah, Chair. I think that's a big one, obviously. I think we're sharpening our pencils on cost risk estimation, which does need to take into account not only inflation, but some of the tariffs and those things. And we've already seen some pretty significant impacts, 4, 6, 8 times cost increase on items already that are coming through. So I think we can, with the capital investment plan that we're talking about here, longer term, we can build that in. I think what the challenge will be is the interim period that we're in, which means we have a number of projects that we've identified that are either in construction or moving into construction with a certain level cost estimate that was made that didn't account for that. That means that to continue those, that's going to push other things out into the future. I think that's going to be the most challenging part of this, is that interim period where we have these and they're going to have a pretty significant impact further out. So, no, we haven't done that to date because we have projects that are already estimated and those are going to be impacted. And then we need to build that into the future. And that's part of our cost estimation work that we're working on.
Thank you for that. And then just a couple of more things here regarding the chart there at the end in terms of just kind of discussion topics. I definitely, some of the overall buckets are good. I think as you get into the nitty gritty of some of the other bullet points, here's where I get a little leery, Amanda, and again, thank you for being here. And I think we're not trying to shoot the messenger on some of these things, because this group can get very passionate about transportation. I worry about, like, under mobility, when we say roadway and multimodal designation, though freight routes is listed, I worry about, is that the end game result? Is it other types of multimodal that are nice to do, but are they have to do? Like I look at this and the STIP this process to be where we're at with funds, to be what are the have to do's versus what's the want to do, right? Champagne dreams on near beer budget. How do we tee up those important areas like safety, maximizing life cycles, complete critical connections, transit. I mean, when you look at traffic volumes and travel time improvements, that comes down to better access to transit. I worry about travel time improvements being code for the dreaded T word, that tolling and those kinds of things. So again, I'm not trying to be thinking that things are totally nefarious. There's great things here, and I think it's a matter of prioritizing the bullet points within each of the categories together. So I will get off my soapbox.
No, Mayor, actually, I think that hits the nail on the head for the conversation we're having here, which is we can't do everything.
Right.
Where do we focus with limited funds, and how do we define that? So I went quickly today, but typically when I give this presentation, I say I actually think the bullet points are the most important pieces underneath and defining those. And so I guess I encourage this group overall to submit comments to the Transportation Commission. I'll certainly summarize what I heard here today and share that back with them. And I think it's helpful for them to see in your own words some of your thoughts. So the meeting is at the end of July. So if you could get written comments to them by late June, early July, that gives them plenty of time to see it and review it as they're considering this. But as you do that, I think highlight any of the bullets that are listed there or any that aren't, that you think are super important, and include some description with it. So to your point, if you read something and you say, oh, that could have a bunch of different meanings, be clear, like, this should, in our opinion, this should mean these kind of things and not these kind of things. Those are lower priority. So that level of specificity is actually super helpful as we develop this, because those are the things exactly that we're wrestling with right now.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. Commissioner Sabas.
Yeah. Amanda, again, just on this table, I I'm wondering, when Mayor Hodson mentioned transit, for example, if we were to look at this a little bit differently, I mean, hypothetically, if we were to take and say, okay, we have this bucket of transit funding, for example, right? And then use these criteria under the guise of transit funding, how would that shake out, right? When we talk about equity, we talk about access, or we talk about geographic balance. I think it may look different based on the funding stream. So just want to put that on the table, that I think it might highlight or expose, if you will, some areas in which we are struggling, right? And sometimes the issue may not be funding, it may be just either policy or politics. And when it comes to people and access and transit, it's a different conversation, right? Policy and politics should not get in the way of access to people with disabilities or senior citizens and so forth. So I just say it would just look different based on the funding stream, and that might help us sort this out.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And I think just a couple things I'd flag with that. So the last slide that I had shown before, one of the questions there is, are there any considerations unique to different modes, for example? And so I think, Commissioner, what you're highlighting there is there are maybe some different lenses you put depending on the mode that you're talking about. As we do talk about this, the projects will be what go through the specific criteria. The more programmatic investments like transit, while we'd hope to influence some of those investments to maximize some of the outcomes, they will not go through that specific criteria because those are transit agencies making those decisions. And then I'll mention, similar to that, we have discretionary grant programs. I think whatever criteria the commission elevates up should inform those grant programs, but then them in and of themselves will have different criteria because they're trying to accomplish different things. So, Commissioner, to your point, the Connect Oregon program and the criteria we use there for multimodal freight movement is going to look by necessity different than criteria we'll use for safe routes to school, which considers the type of school, Title I, all those different kinds of things. So there'll still be some distinctions that exist.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Chair, you're muted if you're talking.
Sorry. Thank you. So going back to like verbiage. So for example, under safety, reduces fatalities and serious injuries. Are there metrics going to be put to that? Like, how do we measure what, road projects are going to reduce those and by how much? So I'm not looking for an answer necessarily right now, but I mean, again, like, how do we flush those out a little bit better so that, we know, like, great, this is a high accident area, and by these things, we're anticipating a 25% reduction in, accidents or fatalities. So just, again, it takes on some of the verbiage.
I'm sorry, I'm bad at like answering things, so I'm going to answer real quick. Sorry, Mayor. And I geek out on safety because it's super important. So safety, for example, would look at areas where we have the highest frequency and number of fatalities and serious injuries. And then we have what we call crash reduction factors at the national level to do exactly the way you described it. Where do we have the highest number of crashes by location? That's a high priority need. Now, does the solution, the project or investment, help to address that need? We can look at that through potential to actually reduce those crashes and fatalities based on some national data. I use that as an example just to say there's a lot of states, and I showed one example from Nevada, that have done this kind of work, that have criteria. So I look at that as opportunity for locations that have tried this and refined it over time to use as kind of a menu of options. So depending on where we say our priorities and our needs are, we can kind of pick from some of those. So safety is another example where you could define safety as reducing any type of crashes or improving seismic resilience, right? There's a lot of different definitions for safety, just depending on the outlook you have. So what of those is the most important? Is it fatalities? Is it serious injuries? Is it some of those kind of things? So again, any and all input like that you're mentioning, Mayor, would be helpful. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. All right. Any other comments for Amanda and this presentation? All right. We will move on to the next item. Amanda, thank you very much for being here. And yeah, and always changing narrative, I'm sure, for the next couple of weeks too.
Indeed it is. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
All right. Next on the agenda this evening, legislative updates. Mr. Wilson.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me back. 24 days until signing die. Commissioner Morrow, I know you work in the building. Council President Anderson, I know you work in the building. I'm sure you guys have a little tally mark. Just pulling them off, pulling them off, pulling them off. 24 days. Get excited. Want to flag a number of things. I know y'all want to talk about the transportation package, but y'all are all covering a variety of works, and there's just been a ton of topics today that have sort of made a note about to sort of flag for your awareness. One thing that this committee does every once in a while is dabble in land use things. And so for those of you city jurisdictions who approve engineering land use designs, you need to know that Senate Bill 974 is now passed out of both chambers, is getting worked right now. It's been a little watered down from where it started, but essentially it creates a 120-day shot clock for approving engineering designs. And then once you hit 120 days, you can, work with those design submitters to extend and extend again. So it's a functional 120 days, and it can go well beyond that with some partnerships there, but it started off much worse. It's much better than it was. And again, really functionally just sets a shot clock for a process that didn't have a shot clock before. Do remember that it started at 45 days, so 120 days, mixed results, but take it as a win, possibly, for those of you who want to follow it. See that hand? I have a lot of these, Mayor Kaiser, but I'll take your question.
Just wanted to thank you for that info. I've been watching that one closely, and I'm glad to hear we're at 120 days, so it's actually feasible and attainable now at this point.
That's right. Yeah. One I know you've all been following closely is Senate Bill 916, and that passed out of the floor this week. And so that one is with the unemployment insurance for striking workers. Many of our agencies, I think all agencies probably have labor groups that represent your employees. And so worth knowing about. Don't have to get into details today, but just worth knowing about that it's passed out of both chambers, and I think back in the Senate for concurrence, likely to keep moving. All right. I want to cover quickly too, since the fire prevention group was in here earlier, that you should be paying attention to wildfire funding here in the legislature this particular year. The legislature had a work group ahead of session that was trying to identify, I think it's like try to find $300 million a year in wildfire funding needs. And as far as I've been told, that the bills that are trying to accomplish that have not really matured. The ODF budget currently does not have a line item for, wildfire beyond current service level budget for ODF. And so I think there's still like some up in the air conversations about how to fund this. You will see probably articles, threads, legislator notes and ideas about funding this through the bottle tax maybe, or through, some people talk about changing the kicker. And so there's a lot of ideas out there. Nothing is materialized yet, but there, as we just talked about, there is an existing and real funding need when those fires get going. And the process right now is to go through emergency funding through the legislature's, rainy day fund to fund those. They'll fund those events after they happen. And so that, I think many legislators are trying to find a more tenable solution to get ahead of some of those costs rather than react to some of those costs. To the extent that you have strong opinions about that, please call your legislator. And then, of course, some of you more in the rural areas are probably tracking Senate Bill 83, which would repeal the wildfire map that was introduced a while back. Some of y'all like it, some of you don't. But it's out there, it's sitting around. No formal action, I think it passed out of the Senate, so it might be over in the House side right now. But it's just sitting around. So keep an eye on it. Things could change. Who knows? Quickly on housing, if you are interested in funding literally anything in the legislature, the belt has tightened. The revenue forecast on May 14, I think it was, set, I wouldn't say a grim picture, but just a steady plateauing picture of the state's revenue forecast. So that has really changed the mood in terms of like how much money is available for the state to fund its state agencies, its contract work with cities and counties, as well as those special projects that you all submit for and we all submit for. And so just set expectations at like level funding. It will be hard, but one of the items that's really struggling right now this week in particular is emergency housing and shelter funding. And that is getting a lot of attention this week. So for those of you who have legislators who are on the committees that are paying attention to that or have access to those funding decision makers in the legislature, they would appreciate your phone call and your advocacy for those housing projects. On the public safety side, I need you to know that the community corrections funding work group has been working really hard to try to get increased funding for those parole and probation diversion type work that they do for our communities. A lot of that is, geared towards individuals who are trying to not go back into the public safety system. And regrettably, the cost study that went through the community corrections work was not funded at the cost study level. It was funded at the continuing service level. CSL for both of those acronyms, if you're not tracking that. That's always fun when the acronyms match and they mean different things. What that means basically is sort of level service, but we know that level service and, when costs start to increase, make that more challenging. I just want you to know that the county's community corrections program, which serves, I believe, all of our cities through partnerships with our law enforcement agencies, still doing good work, still able to keep our services afloat, but it's something that we wanted to be mindful of and help you watch too. There will be efforts by the community corrections associations, public safety associations to try to just see if there was some miscommunication about how that funding shook out, but no bills are signed officially yet, but some of that's moving through Ways and Means, and I want you to be aware of it. Deflection, which was created last year, also continued funding this particular year, a little bit of expansion, and then you probably should pay attention to House Bill 3069 is the bill to watch right now. It is a bill that will consolidate your application for various funds that come through the CJC, Criminal Justice Commission. And so if your agency applies for funding through that program or for any of those programs, rather than doing 4, 3, 4, 5 different funding grant applications, you only have to do it one time if this bill passes, which is nice and efficient. We like efficiency. We talk about that a lot in this room, but it comes with a few other caveats too that are worth listening to. It, I think, tried to remove a fund that dedicated a little bit of funding to officers that are retired and navigating mental health needs. That is a source of contention for a lot of legislators. And then it creates a few different dynamics with deflection that counties will need to grapple with their district attorneys. So, and then education funding, that was a top priority for the legislative session. That bill, I think, has passed through Ways and Means and was funded at the full recommendation, I believe, which makes it tighter for everybody else who's trying to get funding now. So I want to just kind of run through those big things that are not transportation related, because I know you want to talk about transportation. Any questions before I jump into transportation? Going once, going twice, sold into transportation. All righty. There's no bill. There's no bill yet. It's the 24 days left in session. There's no bill yet. And there's been a lot of news articles and a lot of ideas and a lot of, what's the phrase? There's a phrase, I think, by Brene Brown that says, in the absence of information, we create stories. So there's a lot of feelings and ideas out there that will, what's gonna happen? What does this mean? These people have an idea. Those legislators have an idea. But I think we're finally getting close to the edge of the runway where the plane might actually take off here. So here's the latest and greatest. Today, I believe in the Capitol, there is a sheet of paper floating around, and I'm going to share a screen here in just a minute to kind of show you what everyone else is seeing in the building. It's been shared with me. That is an updated framework from the framework that was released back in April. So that was called the TRIP package, Transportation Reinvestment, something like that package. And so the effort there was to really emphasize a lot. We talked about it two months ago here at the session. You've had a lot of time to chew on it. A lot of money towards operations and maintenance in the state highway fund, big protections for 50-30-20. Saw a lot of different new funding mechanisms to try to keep up with the way that transportation funding and usage has modernized, including working towards a road user charge, fees on and taxes on, when you purchase a vehicle and so on. So we'll get into what some of those numbers look like in just a minute. I want you to think more though right now before we get into the details about the timing of things And want to speak quickly to the tenor of conversations in the building. And of course, Commissioner Morrow and it's still here, Council President Anderson. I don't see him anymore. You're in the building as much or more than I am, so you can speak to this too. But the package being released, not yet, but I'm just going to say so late in the session, has really created a lot of consternation amongst, I would just say, all legislators that aren't in the room. And there's about 6-ish legislators that are in the room. So for everybody else, they're waiting for the same details that you're waiting for. So if you feel frustrated about the work you've done to ask legislators to pack a transportation package, they are frustrated too. So this information is just starting to come out. If you still believe, like you did at the front of session, in the values and outcomes document that you put your logo on, or in your legislative agendas that you asked, if a transportation package were to pass, these are what we would like to see in a transportation package, right? Clackamas County Board has an agenda that said, if a transportation package, we'd like to see these things. And then all of our cities put a logo on a letter that said values and outcomes of a transportation package if it were to be a thing. So those are things that we have all seen, signed, looked at. You've kind of asked me to go try to make sure that it looks like some of those things. Largely in the framework that was out in April, and also what we're seeing today, many of those themes are captured. So in that regard, I would say now it's up to you as policymakers and elected officials to decide if you support those numbers and kind of what's in there. 50, 30, 20 is protected. No tolling is in this package. I think those are really the big ones. Transit improvements are also in here, or at least transit funding improvements. So hitting those big prints, ODOT accountability, which I'm honestly really kind of stemmed from this community at large for many years, but the articles this particular year about ODOT have not really helped the situation. So ODOT accountability will be, up front and center in here. And I think if you were to look down the bullet points from the values and outcomes document, you would see a lot of those themes reflected in here. But you, the good elected officials of Clackamas County, get to decide whether the numbers are too high, too low, or in the right place, and you get to talk to your legislators about that. So with that all said, just want you to know next week, we expect the bill to come out on Monday. Don't hold your breath, but that's the plan. And honestly, with 24 days left, I don't know if it can actually even come out any later and have a chance at survival. Don't want to be a pessimist because it would be great to see a bill and have something to talk about, but it's so late that it's going to be tricky. The current plan now is for there to be 3 hearings next week at the Joint Committee on Transportation Reinvestment. The first one will be in the evening from 5 to 7 on Tuesday. That's June 10th. And that one is supposed to be about ODOT accountability and the anchor projects, so Rose Quarter and I-205. The June 11 hearing, also 5 to 7, as of the latest information, will be about transit funding. And then on the Thursday hearing, 5 to 7, it will be about operations and maintenance, 50, 30, 20 formula funds for the state highway fund. So to the extent that you have strong feelings about one of those nights or those topics, please be on the lookout for when you can register to testify. I suspect that some of those will be more popular hearings than others, and it might be hard to get in. If you want to testify, I recommend going in person because I expect those rooms to fill out. And if you are waiting to do it online, you will probably not get called. So, strong recommendation for going to Salem to testify. If you want a transportation package, the legislators in that building need to hear from you. If you don't want a transportation package, you could also go testify and oppose it, or sometimes quiet is also its own speaking point. So up to you on your approach for your jurisdiction and yourselves as elected officials. I hope you are hearing as many disclaimers as I can offer here as just a staff person who's delivering information right now. Okay, before I get into the numbers, any questions about just like the process, the hearing, what we're waiting for, etc.? Nothing. Okay. Remember, there is no bill. These are just numbers on a page that we are all seeing together at the same time. I expect this will be in the Oregonian soon enough if it's not there already. Okie dokie. Here are the big numbers. Again, none of these will be big surprises because a lot of them were either in the initial framework back in April or in the, we'll call it the framework that was released a couple of days ago. That is a little bit more ambitious. And so it's kind of an amalgamation of both of those things together. So up here at the top, this is, I would just say for our purposes today, this is the State Highway Fund. Oh, actually it says right here, State Highway Fund. Perfect. So fuels tax, gas tax, 15-cent increase. Remember it was 20 cents back in April. So it's gone down a little bit. Initial 10-cent implementation and then a 5-cent implementation 2 years later, so 26, 28. Title fee increase, this is lower than the April one. Registration fee increase, this is lower than the April one. Wait mile, waiting on math. So you're getting what I'm getting. Road user charge passenger vehicles, per mile charge, 5% of gas tax. I'm sure there are some details here. What I have heard that I don't know, but what I have heard about the road user passenger vehicle system, remember back in April when the last framework came out, it was for electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and then at some point it was going to implement vehicles that are 30 miles per gallon or above, or better, I should say. I believe that the 30 miles per gallon and better is no longer part of this math. That has been shared with me, and actually that's been a source of advocacy by many and several Clackamas delegation members. So we have a great delegation in Clackamas County, and I can't speak highly enough about really all of them. They do really great work. Road user charge for commercial delivery vehicles. I believe this will be set up through like a geofence, but ODOT will be able to do this in different locations. So that little Amazon electric truck that's running around that's not paying gas tax, they're going to put a little geo tag on it and then create a geofence and, you know, for its routes, and then calculate how many miles it goes, and that'll bake into some fund here that goes into the State Highway Fund. And then fuels tax indexing. So gas tax being indexed, you can see that there's whatever this means, adjust with inflation. You're seeing what I'm seeing. We'll get the math all together at the same time. What I've heard, whatever, is that this raises about $1 billion a year in just State Highway Fund components. So $2 billion per biennium. And I'm just giving you a rough number here because it's not written down here, but roughly that's about what that could meet, which is pretty similar to the information that came out back in April. And I've been thinking about this a lot today. How can it be similar in cost to what came out in April if these numbers from these first three categories have all gone down? And I think the answer is these numbers have started to come in, like the road user, like they're starting able to calculate what could that be. And so they're starting to do a little mixy matchy with some of those pieces. What about everything else, you might ask? So a payroll tax, this is the transit funding or STIF funding. It's currently at 0.1, so 1/10 of 1%. So it looks like this will go up by 0.2, which means it will go up to the total will be 0.3, so 3/10 of 1%. And so you could say it a number of ways. And Commissioner Morrow, you taught me how to, like, you could say that this is triple or doubling. I guess it's tripling. You could say it's going up by 200%. You could say it's only going up by 0.2 of 1%. So you can say it a number of ways, and whichever way makes you feel comfortable to support or oppose it. But there it is. It's going. What the proposal was back in April was to take it from 0.1 to 0.18. This will take it from 0.1 to 0.3. Transfer tax. A lot of people call this a sales tax. A lot of people call it transfer tax. A lot of people call it other things. This used to just say 1% on new vehicles. That's what it said back in April. Now this is more reflective of what came out of a framework that was released earlier this week. So it's 2% on new vehicles. It's 1% on used vehicles, but only for used vehicles that are above $10,000. So when you are buying that used vehicle on Craigslist because it's a great deal on that 2014 model, and they're trying to get 10.5 out of you, go ahead and work that down to $9.99 so that you don't have to pay that transfer fee. because that's gonna, cost you 10% in that situation, or 1% in that situation. So be mindful of that, those prices on the board are right there for that Craigslist listing. It will fund, this is our favorite part, if you're interested in I-205, anchor projects. $250 million per biennium off the top of the State Highway Fund. That's, I guess, above and beyond the initial piece there. So that's Rose Quarter and Abernathy Bridge. My understanding here is that those will get a first blush. That's not tolling for a project that this community has been largely supportive of. It also would fund at really high amounts. These are really big numbers that have changed a lot since the April framework, the Great Streets program and the Safe Routes to Schools program. So that's about $300 million to combine there. So that's a lot. There's a railroad fund in here for the privilege tax. There is a wildfire crossing fund in here for the vehicle use tax. And I think in the bill, we will see this piece here, which is accountability. This is literally the only thing about accountability in the whole package. So there's still not quite a lot of details here, but simplify weight miles, more audits, transparency, stewardship, fairness. These are the details. We have them. I hope these are in the Oregonian soon enough. I hope there's a bill on Monday. You know what I know now. Merry Christmas. Mayor Hodson.
Thank you, Brent, for that update on that piece. Will you be sure to send that out to us, please?
Yes. Yep, it's public record. It's been floating around.
Okay, great. Any other comments or pieces for Trent on this? We're moving on. It is going to be a crushing next couple of weeks at the legislature, so stay tuned. All right.
I guess maybe I will just say, I'm sorry, real quick. To the extent that it is so late, and to the extent that you are still on the fence or supportive of a transportation package, I can't stress enough how much your legislator needs to hear from you. Not everybody is. And maybe not everybody is at the numbers in here. But what my reflection here is that before the session, there was a broad discussion about a need for transportation funding, both for ODOT and for local jurisdictions. I'm not here to tell you that you should support this or oppose it. My board has not taken a position on this, so I am just here as an information person. But in terms of how many days are left in session and the importance of these hearings, I would encourage you to work with LOC or AOC and get an understanding of how much money your agency could receive from that state highway fund, because you all get a portion of that state highway fund. And that's why we work so hard to protect 50-30-20. If you are supportive of this transportation package, because there are no projects really listed in here, it would be worth thinking about with your council. How does that translate? Do some social math. How does that translate into how many miles you can pave? How many crosswalks you might be able to put up that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise? Those are also projects, right? And so if you're thinking about it that way, I would encourage you to try to do some napkin math. You can do the same thing if you're not in favor of this, but it is incredibly important for your legislators to know that napkin math if you are supportive and you want them to support this bill. And if you don't, you can go that way too. My board will make this decision maybe on Tuesday if we have a bill. We'll see. Commissioner Savas isn't here to validate some of those pieces or not, but it is important to talk to your legislator if you want a transportation package, or if you don't.
Thank you, Trent. I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, moving in, updates and other business, JPAC update. Can you do it in 5 seconds? Ready, set, go.
Yeah. Okay. JPAC, easy. We just heard kind of overall funding updates on the Step 1A projects, which are the Earthquake Ready Burnside Bridge, 82nd Avenue, Sunrise Corridor, and Montgomery Park streetcar projects.
Okay. That was good. Impact updates.
I can do that too. the last meeting, we voted to endorse the locally preferred alternative for that same 82nd Avenue project of the transit improvement project there on 82nd Avenue. Does go into part of Clackamas County there. It's a good project. We also heard discussion of the regional housing coordination strategy. I think some of us here have heard that before as well. Also got a summary of the Montgomery Park streetcar locally preferred alternative, and then heard about the comprehensive climate action plan, kind of greenhouse gas reduction, the thing that their Metro's doing with an EPA grant.
Great, thank you. Library task force.
I'll take that. Myself, Mayor Milch, I think, is present tonight. I think we're the two people. We're having our first meeting next week. We'll probably be reporting on progress with that. And so there'll be a lot of city involvement in this one because in 2008, the measure was pretty well city driven, and it will continue to be, any reshaping will be pretty well city intensive. But we'll all have to collaborate. And I think the we is going to be, again, primarily cities in the county a little bit. If you have any thoughts about that, reach out to your respective council members, and we'll keep you informed. Mayor Milch, you have anything to add?
It's one of the rare things we do where cities are assigned parts of the unincorporated areas to sort of work with. So I think it provides us some opportunity to examine how well that's working and perhaps how it could work in other areas too.
Yeah. There was a lot of genius in the formula and the plan and how to distribute the monies, but there were a couple of errors and oversights. And I think the Gladstone Oak Grove situation rendered itself into a settlement, but nonetheless, it might be the anomaly. But we're facing a little bit either a funding challenge or a boundary challenge. I think Mayor Hodson and others know what some of that is, but we'll keep you informed as things progress.
Okay, great. And update the C4 meeting calendar. I believe that's probably Jamie.
Yes, sir. Very quickly, included on the final page of your packet tonight is an overview of our meetings throughout the rest of the year. Really quick, I want to flag a few things for this body's awareness. The first is the next C4 Metro subcommittee meeting is on the 11th, which is this next Wednesday. We are meeting off sequence to accommodate some funny timing in the JPAP schedule this month. Additionally, we propose canceling the July and August C4 meetings in recognition of the C4 retreat, which will occur on the 25th and 26th. And finally, that we have the potential of a social night on December 4th. And jumping back to the C4 Metro side, the potential to cancel the August meeting in recognition that JPAC and Impact will not be meeting that month. But if you have any concerns about that possibility, please let me know. I'd also love to see a head nod if the group is comfortable with these potential cancellations. I'm seeing a head nod, 2 head nods, 3, 4 head nods. I think I have a majority of the nods. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. All right. That's it. That's all she wrote. I'm not going to take any more comments or questions. So, Mr. Brashear, will you make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn this glorious meeting that we've had.
I'll second.
Great. It's been first and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are out.
See you at the retreat.
Till next month. Have a great one.